Who is the best healer in Rainbow Six Siege? Well, it's actually a bit more complicated than you might think. Sure, Doc is the most popular, but Thunderbird recently got a huge buff, and Rook actually has the highest win rate. So out of all three operators, Doc, Rook, and Thunderbird, who was actually the best defensive healer? To find out, I'm going to go over each operator individually, starting off with the most popular of the three, being Doc. For Doc's primary weapons, he brings the MP5, which on paper is not one of the better SMGs in the game, but because of its ACOG, can feel great on him specifically. Sure, it has low damage, but its lack of recoil makes this gun an absolute laser. If that's not your style though, Doc also brings the second best shotgun in the game, which is the SG-CQB shotgun. This in most circumstances will one-shot opponents, and can do so from a very long range. Finally, for Doc's last primary option, we have the P90. The P90 is a very slept-on weapon in my opinion. The reason for this being is that it has 50 bullets in each magazine, while also having an almost identical recoil pattern as the MP5 does, and having more fire rate. The only issue this gun has is its damage, but it's still a great SMG regardless of that fact. Now that I've shown you Doc's primary weapons, let's go over something that actually makes him stand out a bit more, which are his secondary weapons. Doc has the P9 pistol, which is a solid pistol delivering 45 damage per shot, with 16 bullets in its magazine. If you want something with even more damage though, then let's talk about his revolver, the LFP-586. This revolver lacks an ammo count with only having 6 bullets, but it makes up for that by having 78 damage per shot, which is a lot. But so far, every weapon I've talked about in this video that Doc has, Rook also has, which can make Doc seem worse. However, there is one secondary option that Doc brings on his own, and that is the Bailiff 410. The Bailiff is a secondary revolver shotgun that is used mainly as a way to open up soft destruction. Whether it be head holes, rotates, feet holes, hatches, you name it, the Bailiff can open it. Having soft destruction on any operator instantly makes them more of a valuable pick, as a lot of the times your teammates just won't set up sight. Having the Bailiff is also much more cohesive on Doc specifically because opening more sight lines allows you more angles you can use to heal your teammates with your stim pistol. So that is one thing that Doc has on the other operators in this video that makes him just slightly better. Something else that is cohesive with Doc in his kit is his secondary utility. It's widely believed that a good solo queue defender is made by their ability to bring information and soft destruction. Doc can bring both of these things by bringing his Bailiff or by bringing barbed wire / his bulletproof camera. This makes Doc even more of a versatile pick. But now that we've gotten his loadout out of the way, let's go over the most important part when discussing any operator, and that is his primary gadget, the stim pistol. The stim pistol is a healing pistol that when shot at a teammate will instantly bring them back to their max HP. Not only this, but it can also revive your downed teammates from a distance, also bringing them back to full HP as well. You can also use this ability to revive or heal yourself, making him not only good as a team player, but also as a fragger that can outlive multiple gunfights. Because of his ability to bring in ACOG on defense, as well as his ability to heal himself, most people play him as a fragger. This is viable, but because of the inherent bias that players have to save their stims for themselves, or the simple fact that Docs die early due to spawn peeking, Doc can be seen as a less reliable healer than some people like Rook or Thunderbird. For this reason, I think Doc is the most versatile and effective healer, but the least consistent and the hardest to use properly. There's also the added negative effect that his stim pistol is not a hit scan device, meaning that the stims have travel time. This can cause people to miss stims, which makes Doc even less consistent than he already is. Some people will also argue that healing operators like Doc are bad because in a one-shot headshot game, it's hard for healers to be viable. But as someone who plays in the highest level pretty consistently, I can assure you that the argument is just as inconsistent as Doc is, so I won't be using it to make any three of these operators seem any worse than they are. But now that we've talked about everything we've been able to talk about for the operator Doc, let's move on to the next operator, which is Rook. Because Rook and Doc have identical loadouts, I won't be going over Rook's loadout too much in today's video. Just like Doc, Rook brings the MP5, the SG-CQB shotgun, and the P90. He also has the same secondary options of the P9 pistol and the LFP-586 revolver. The only difference in their weapons is the fact that Doc has the Bailiff and Rook doesn't, which does make Rook less versatile. But what Rook lacks in secondary weapons, he more than makes up for in secondary utility. Whereas Doc only has barbed wire and a bulletproof camera, Rook has one of the best defensive secondary gadgets in the game, which are impact grenades. These recently have been nerfed, making them have less of an explosion range, but it doesn't really change what most people use them for, creating rotates. If you bring impact grenades on Rook, you're able to create rotates just like Doc, which evens out the playing field between them in my opinion. Rook also brings proximity alarms and observation blockers, but those aren't as good, so they're not really worth mentioning in today's video. Now that I've gone over Rook's loadout, I'm going going to go over his primary gadget, which is the armor pack. The armor pack, otherwise known as Rook Armor, is a gadget that you place down on any flat surface, preferably the second you load into the prep phase. When you place down this gadget, you can continue holding down the ability button to immediately equip the Rook Armor you're giving to other players. The gadget after this will stay on the floor, allowing your teammates to come and get the Rook Armor, or you to get it as well if you haven't already. If one or more of your teammates don't grab their armor plates, the attackers can pick them up and use it for themselves, which will give them the buffs you would have wanted for your teammates to have. Speaking of buffs, what does having Rook Armor actually do? All it does is give you more health on top of your existing health. This makes taking gunfights easier and can be the difference a lot of the time between you dying or getting a kill. Not only can it do this by giving you more health, but also by giving you the withstand ability. The withstand ability is the ability to revive yourself, and if you get downed with Rook Armor on, the game will give you the ability to revive yourself once per round. This can be the difference between you dying or living. Now, most content creators will tell you that this is inconsistent, but I don't believe that this is actually true. If you have armor on and you constantly play behind cover, when you get downed, you will be able to revive yourself every single time, which makes Rook a lot more useful than people realize if you can position yourself correctly. Also, if a shield melees you and you have Rook Armor on, even if you're not playing Rook, it actually takes an extra melee to down you, which makes him a good shield counter alongside the impacts as well. Something else to note is that because your gadget is typically used in the prep phase, even if you die, you will normally get value from your teammates, making this operator great for newer players still trying to learn the ropes. Rook also has the highest defensive win rate for high-level PC players, not just out of the healing operators, but out of any defensive operator in the game, and third place on console, further proving that he's a real contender for the best healer conversation. Someone who can also just be as high of a contender is our next and final operator in this video, which is Thunderbird. Thunderbird is the first operator on this list that isn't a 1-speed 3 armor, being a 2-speed 2 armor instead. This gives her the advantage in gunfights and roaming potential, but more on that later. For now, let's go over her loadout. Her primary guns aren't actually that bad. First of all, she has the Spear 308 assault rifle. Normally having an assault rifle on defense would be really good, but this assault rifle has low rate of fire, high recoil in comparison to Doc and Rook's weapons, and is the only defensive healer without any magnification options on this gun. I will say this is made up for at least a little by its high damage of 42, but overall it can seem underwhelming at times. Next up, we have her other primary option, which is the Spaz 15 shotgun. This shotgun is one of the worst shotguns in the game, and so bad in fact that I won't even be going over it. Just know that you should never use it. Next, let's move on to her secondary weapons. First up, she has one of the best pistols in the game, which is the Q929 pistol that comes on Legion and Ying. As good as this pistol is with 60 damage per bullet, it's not nearly as impactful as running the next option, which is the Bearing 9. The Bearing 9 is one of the best secondary SMGs in the game, with it having no side-to-side recoil and 33 damage per bullet. I personally think running this will be your best option, but if you want the option to set up sight, you should consider running the ITA-12S secondary shotgun. This is a pretty bad shotgun, all things considered, but you're mainly going to be using it to set up the map, so I don't think that that really matters. I do think the Bearing 9 is an overall better choice, but the secondary shotgun is still viable as well. Moving on from secondary weapons, let's move on to secondary utility. Of all three of the operators on this list, Thunderbird brings the best secondary utility options, with the bulletproof camera, the barbed wire on Doc, and also the best secondary gadget on defense, the deployable shield. A deployable shield brought with Kona stations behind it makes Thunderbird much more viable, making Thunderbird have things that the other two healers don't. Now that we've gone over her loadout though, let's go over her primary gadget, the Kona stations. The Kona station is a gadget that when placed will have a short activation time that lets you know when it's ready for use. To use the gadget, all you have to do is walk next to it and it will automatically heal you for 30 HP. After the initial heal, you will get passive healing for 2 HP per second until you are full HP again. This will, however, be interrupted if you take damage, making you have to play passively until you are at your desired health. Because of her passive healing, this makes her a serious contender to Doc now, as they are both able to heal people up to full HP even from 0. Something Thunderbird is also good at is being able to die and still bring value, because her stations will heal even after you die, which is something Doc cannot do. You also have 3 stations, whereas Doc only has 1 pistol, making her better in that way as well. The only bad thing about having a station though is that an enemy can also use the station as a way to heal themselves, but if you position your stations in sight, this is something that happens too rarely to really matter. Her only major downsides are that she heals initially less than Doc, and she doesn't bring magnification scopes. So now that we've gone over every operator, it's time to decide which the best defensive healer in the entire game is. You have Doc as the most versatile and has the most fragging potential. You have Rook for the the most consistent and easiest to use. And finally, you have Thunderbird, who brings the most amount of healing and the best secondary gadgets. Well, if I had to pick one of these operators to be the best, I'd say it would easily have to go to Doc. I think it's obvious to most people watching this video that Rook isn't even in the conversation. He's a consistent operator that wins a lot of rounds, sure, but this video is about who the best healer is, and he technically doesn't even heal people. There's also the lack of impact in his utility compared to others, and that makes him arguably the worst of the three. Still a good operator, but not even in the competition for the best healer in the game. But deciding between Thunderbird and Doc was a lot harder than you may realize. First of all, Thunderbird is much easier to heal with, by having 3 different points of contact with her heals. Pair this up with good placements, and she becomes much better. She also does bring a deployable shield and arguably a better weapon, but this doesn't unfortunately outweigh what Doc brings to the table in my opinion. First of all, Doc has more killing potential. In a solo queue environment, this is crucial, and he does this by bringing an ACOG on a weapon with almost no recoil. Next, he brings the Bailiff, which can allow him and his team to make things more dangerous for the attack. He also heals the quickest out of the 3 by instantly bringing people back to their max HP, and most of the time when you get downed or even to low HP, you only have a short time window before you die, so this is very important. That paired up with the fact that he can overheal and heal himself no matter where he is or when it is cool too. With Thunderbird, you have to be at an exact station with cover, whereas Doc can heal anywhere and anytime. For those reasons and many more, I think Doc is the clear choice best healer in the entire game. But with that out of the way, my name's Alka, and I'll see you in the next video.